Hi, my name is Allyson Green. I'm the Dean of the Tisch School of the Arts, and I am thrilled to be in conversation with Seán Curran, professor here, former chair of dance, and alumni of the Tisch School of the Arts Dance Department, who is going to be presenting an incredible concert, which I've been able to see some rehearsals of, with your NYU Skirball debut of the world premiere of Paths and the return of Everywhere All the Time. Seán, so happy to be talking to you.
And I'm happy to be here talking to you. And yes, I'm a proud member of the class of 1983.
1983.
From the dance program at NYU. Never thought I'd be back as a professor or be chair of the department, but that's what happened, and I'm very proud of that, and pleased to be here with you today.
And what remarkable work you did as chair too,
Thank
really
you.
sending our dance department into the top echelons. And there's quite a few Tisch alumni in your company right now too, performing, right?
Yes, I have 10 dancers, 7 are Tisch dance grads. So the Tisch dance program has been a little feeder school for my company, and I have 3 apprentices right now, and 2 are currently BFA 2s, and 1 graduated last year. So it's all Tisch all the time at Seán Curran Company.
I appreciate the fact that, you know, it used to be dance companies were able to like train and make work together over long periods of time. That's become more and more difficult today, and so I thought working with dancers who you actually taught over the years helps to create a core for you of people who understand the way that you work. And of course we have a siren going by because this is New York, and this is always the soundscape of our lives on Broadway here.
It's true.
But anyway, just thinking about, can you tell me a little bit about what the process is for you of working with a company, and then I'm going to ask you some questions really specific to these pieces.
Yeah, so the fact that I get to train these dancers and the faculty who come to see the shows, I would say you're responsible for training these people. There's something very gratifying about that. And you know, when you're talking about having a company, you have a common language. It's much harder to do that now just because of the way the world works and economics. So, and I work slowly. When I make a piece, I don't have an opening night and I back up 6 weeks. I do chunks of time. January when we're off from school, August when there's lots of space at the dance program, spring break. These are times I know I can get the dancers 5 or 6 hours a day and go deep and work on material to make a piece. I have to fall in love with a dancer in terms of their dancing and how they navigate the world, you know, have their artistic antennae out, living in the world of ideas, because we do a lot of talking in rehearsal. And I'm a music-driven guy. I make dances because I love music so much, but I hope I'm also a humanist. I want to make dances about what it's like to be a human being right now in the world. And even if you boil that down a little bit, I feel that I make contemporary urban folk dances because I was an Irish step dancer growing up. So it's all folk dance to me. We're the folks dancing, you're the folks watching. It's folk dance.
That's beautiful. I think of that with your work, which I have so loved over the years, and that it takes dancers that are both brilliant in thinkers, creators, but brilliant with their feet. Like your work is always super fast, complicated, interesting, long phrases, kind of work I love to see. The rhythm and the dance and the music is so important. And in regards to that, I wanted to ask you, this new work that you're doing, I understand was first driven by music that you came across that made you want to do more of. I think you were doing something with the King Singers. Can you tell me a little bit about what that process was?
This is correct. My company and the King Singers, which are an a cappella singing group from London, they've been around since the 60s. The singers have changed over the years, but we were put together by our agents to come up with an evening, and we called the evening Travel Songs. There was an idea about each piece of music and each dance would be about moving through space, being en route. I listened to most of their CDs, and they have a huge catalog of music they've recorded, and it could be like Madrigals by Monteverdi or the Beatles songbook. But in the middle of all these CDs was a piece of music by Joby Talbot, a British composer, that was a section from his work which is called Path of Miracles, hence the title of my dance, Path. And I was drawn to this piece of music. It's choral music and they're singing words, and typically as a contemporary dance choreographer I don't really want lyrics, it's more information. But the motor of the music, and I say that music is the motor for the dancing, inspired me, and I knew that this is a piece of music I can make steps to. I'm a maker of steps. It's about a 15-minute piece of music. We made the dance, it went on tour, it was a bit of a hit, but it was never seen in New York. I didn't have the King Singers, I didn't fit easily onto a program, and I knew that Joby Talbot, the composer, had made 2 other sections. So this is maybe 12 years ago. I thought someday I will return to this dance and I'll choreograph the other 2 sections of music and we'll put it on as a complete piece. And so it's been challenging. The piece is 45 minutes long. All my friends, including you, say it's not too long. But,
no, but you said it's the longest work you've ever made.
Yeah, I made one dance for a band called Dreamed in a Dream that was an evening length, an hour-long piece. But this is the longest piece of repertory on an evening with another work. But I will say my dancers are so phenomenal. You never get ahead of them. They keep you engaged, and because they're such great collaborators, I feel that the piece is the right amount of time.
And it's inspired by, was it the music that sent you in that direction, but it's inspired by the Camino de Santiago, which is an ancient Catholic pilgrimage route across northern Spain to the Cathedral of Santiago. And I think also you were looking at visual art imagery from Siena and different places. So can you tell me a little bit about what that is for you, and maybe touch a bit on your own spiritual journey as a maker and creator? And
yeah.
This seems to me the most connected to faith-based kind of work that I've seen you make.
Yeah.
And I found it very moving, but I was curious as to that path for you.
Yeah, you really get it. You're really onto something. As a child, the son of Irish immigrants, firstborn, only boy, I was sent, of course, to Catholic school, where I was also an altar boy. I was also in the church choir, and I was quite pious. I was very holier than thou, I think. In the first grade, I thought I wanted to be a nun. That changed later to wanting to be a Christian brother and to teach visual art to little kids. But I prayed several times a day. I had a glow-in-the-dark plastic Pietà, the Da Vinci sculpture.
Yeah.
I think I got it as a gift for not missing any school one year. And I would put flowers in a little vase, they're probably weeds. So I loved God and religion and Jesus and stuff. But there comes a time when you are 11 or 12 or 13 and you realize you're gay and you understand, I say there's no place at the table for me. And it was devastating in a way. And as an older person in the 90s, I read a book called Wrestling with Angels, which is a great title, but it's specifically about gay men, lesbian women who have this trouble with faith and religion and God. God being this old white guy with a beard who watches what you do with your genitals. It's not how it works, everybody. Anyway, to be flippant, irreverent, but I felt as an adult that the work can help save you. And what do I mean by the work? The making and the doing, the dancing. Jonathan Singer-Sargent, the painter, on his tombstone it says, "To work is to pray." I love that idea. So I'm a dancer. To dance is to pray, to choreograph is to pray. So this new dance is a prayer for the state of our world right now. Hopefully there's some hope, there's longing, there's grief, there's regret. It also, I feel, is like a requiem, in a way, for my Irish Catholic parents, who, in my program note, I say their Catholic faith is unwavering, and yet I don't really understand it, and I'm a little jealous of it. So art making works in my life the way religion can in some people's, and that it makes sense out of a chaotic universe in a world where bad things happen to good people. So the dance studio, the theater, the rehearsal hall is mosque, temple, church. And that's why I feel so strongly that the work can help save you. The work will not save you, but the work, the making and
the process of
it,
it.
can help save you, you know, in a sense, from yourself or whatever that is.
And I was thinking, because you and I are contemporaries, of the loss that we experienced of those that we loved during the 90s, late 80s with the AIDS epidemic, and many talked about the loss of faith then and the perseverance to keep going, and it was like this redoubling of a mission to create and to make for those we lost in that time. And it seems like there has been a through line, as I've witnessed in your work, that deals with grief and loss, but always also joy and hope. There's this really beautiful through line to me that perseveres, and I feel that in this new work as well, that there's I feel loss, and then I feel this extraordinary, especially by the third section, endurance, where they keep going and going and running, and it reminded me of the work at that time where, you know, the long endurance pieces that were created. And I was wondering if you were thinking about that, or is that just was spurred by the music itself that was propelling you to keep going in some way?
I love how you asked that question, because your question's loaded, and so is my process. There's a great history of these kinds of dances, and not that I want to compare myself to the masters, but Doris Humphrey's The Shakers,
yes,
or Jose Limon's Misa Brevis, Arnie Zane's The Gift, No God Logic.
Right.
And I knew when I started I was making one of those dances.
Yeah, I feel that.
And that was, you know, a challenge, a burden. But it was kind of a mission. It's some pieces you want to make and some pieces you have to make. And I knew taking it on, it was going to be a long process. And of course it has been over years that I've been doing this. The music is so important to me. The music, it's elegiac, it's filled with soul. The first section is sung in Aramaic and Latin. And the second and third sections, they're singing in English, and we had an idea once we do super titles that you do at the opera, but we decided not to do that. The information is coming hopefully strongly enough through the choreography. But there's wonderful poetic lines. This is a journey that's been going on for hundreds of years ago. Hundreds of years ago, they'd say, we sleep on the earth and dream of the road. So this idea of moving forward. There's lines like seeing the virgin in the apple tree, the apostle on horseback. So without getting too literal, I illustrate this in a way that you would see a religious painting or sculpture.
Like the Sienna painting.
Exactly. And I brought the books to rehearsal, and there's a series of pietas, and we pulled that up on the computer, and I was surprised that dancers weren't familiar with Da Vinci's masterpiece. But one quick anecdotal thing I want to say is we have seekers, ancestors, and saints. Those are the three ideas of the sections. And with the ancestors, I have them sitting on the floor do a version of Pietà, a woman holding a man, and then a man holding a woman. And then because there's 6 other dancers in the piece, I wanted them to have their own moment of Pietà, the suffering, literally in Italian. And I have 2 women, a man and a woman. I have 2 men, which I always would do back in the 90s, asking the question, who gets to dance with whom?
Right.
Now we ask who gets to be a dancer, and anyone in our brave new world. But when I set it up, I had the two women and the man and the woman, and then downstage right I had two men. It happened to be Dwayne Brown, an African American, and Benjamin Friedman, a Jewish man. I thought, oh my God, it's Bill and Arnie.
Oh,
Right
you're
there.
right. I could
So,
think of that. That's beautiful.
Heidi Latsky, my close
Right.
friend, our close friend, came to rehearsal the other day, and I leaned over and I said, it's Bill and Arnie, and she welled up with emotion. And so that's my own personal little reference. And
To explain to our audience, you danced with Bill
Yeah.
and Arnie
Yeah.
For many years, and it
Yeah.
had a major impact for you, I'm
Oh,
sure.
yeah.
From-
And was with Arnie Zane when he died of AIDS. And I just have to say, I've heard so many of your speeches, and you always reference that time of loss and grief and suffering. And I think you're right. I think it inspired people to make work. I made a piece called Am I Dead Yet? It was a solo. I did it a lot, and it helped. And that's what I mean by the work will help save you.
Helps to keep going.
Yeah.
And it was completely by chance that Jay asked you to do Skirball on the week that it's Passover and Easter. Like that, you didn't plan that, but seems somehow appropriate that this work is happening on this weekend. Yeah.
You're absolutely right. I don't think anyone realized that when we set the date, but it did come up in a meeting, and is that okay? And I said, absolutely, and that's how it should be. Now, for an agnostic atheist, I don't know what I am, I have to say that seems like a
felt like an intervention.
Intervention, synchronicity, a sign from the universe, but it has worked out really wonderfully well. Last Sunday was Passover and Palm Sunday, and we had a big 6-hour rehearsal. I invited some people to come, and we all kind of laughed at that. We were in a dance studio, church,
right.
synagogue.
Our church.
Yeah,
Right.
and we're doing this dance that is, in a sense, offering.
Now you've paired this new work with the return of Everywhere All the Time, which you describe as a meditation, sometimes quiet, sometimes clamorous, on loneliness and solitude. And I'm curious, you have so many remarkable works you've done over the years, why you felt this was the time to bring this work back, and how you feel like it is the counter or the companion to Path.
You know, the first thought about bringing it back is that, I'm 63 years old. We are dance makers. We don't have a painting to hang on the wall, a book that's published you put on the shelf. I wanted to see it one more time. I wanted to see if it held up. And I wanted to kind of let it go with love. That was my first impetus. But then I felt, this could work really well on this program, because Everywhere All the Time is clamorous, is meditative, is calm, but it's chaos. It's absolute chaos, and hopefully organized chaos, but maybe a vision of hell, I don't know. It started out as a piece about loneliness versus solitude. I've made a lot of those dances. In my early life as a choreographer, I made dances about people who wanted to connect and couldn't. I've always admired the paintings of Edward Hopper. There'll be two people in a painting, and yet they seem the loneliest people in the world, or one person in the painting.
Right.
But in this piece, this jumping off place was this idea, but the music, a wonderful score by Donica Dennehy, an Irish music composer. This music, it's called Surface Tension. It's made for 4 percussionists, and specially made drums where there's a tube and you blow into the tube and the drum head expands, so you hit it and the pitch changes, you let the air out, the pitch distorts. Very difficult music. It was a commission from Anna Thompson, who said, I'd like you to make a dance to this music by this Irish composer, and we're going to have Third Coast Percussion, a great percussion ensemble from Chicago, play it live. Sadly, we don't have live music at Skirball Hall, but the music's so challenging and wonderful, and the piece, I hope, is so strong I want to bring it back. One thing I'll say about the music is that I was not having any luck, but I noticed the dancer was like, it sounds like rain, we'll call this the rain section. And there's images of lightning. This is the lightning. When we got to the cloud bursts, I thought, wow, it's not music, it's weather. And as a choreographer, when I started thinking about music as weather and dancing in the music rather than to the music, I had a kind of breakthrough. And it's evolved now to be about nature, people's interpretation, our relationship with nature. The late Dr. Deanna Balmori, who was a brilliant landscape architect, designed a set, her signature motif, which she called the forest. So it started out about being loneliness and solitude, and yet now it's taken on this new life, this new meaning about our relationship as human beings to nature. So the dance you set out to make is not always the dance you wind up with.
That's the delightful thing about choreography, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, you have these ideas and this blank slate, but it reveals itself through the process, and also what the dancers themselves bring into it and their personalities of changing. When you come back to a work like Everywhere All the Time, do you change it at all, or it's completely representative of what it was when you first made it? Like, does it shift?
It shifts, it changes, mostly because it's never, or it's not usually the original cast.
Sure.
And there's several dancers who were in the original cast that have moved on. They're no longer dancers or doing something else. So the younger, newer dancers step into those roles. Jacoby Pruitt, who was a Tisch grad who dances with the Joan Zane Company, stepped into the role originated by Betsy Coker, who's a Tisch professor, who just had 2 babies and she's not ready to come back. So Jacoby has taken on Betsy's role. He's a very tall person, Betsy's not as tall. So it changes that way. Ashland DeGeorge is stepping into the role originated by Mariel Harris, who's on tour doing musical theater. So that's changed and evolved. But it's an interesting question, because just on Sunday the piece has been set, we've been rehearsing it, and the dancer's saying, but that's not all, what's on the video.
Oh,
and I said, let's handle it roughly, let's be loose. You know, the dance is never the same way twice. If you want it the same way twice, you make a movie or a painting or a score. But that's part of the ephemerality of what we do. That's why a reason I wanted to bring back this dance, which you asked before, is that it's just there in this moment of time. It's about 25 minutes. The dancers do the dance and then it's gone.
I always loved the Merce Cunningham quote, that single fleeting moment when you feel alive.
Yes.
The kinesthetic connection between the audience and something alive happening, that is absolutely the joy of experiencing the work.
You're right, and I talk a lot about when is your life in flow. For a younger man, it was when I was moving or dancing to interesting or beautiful music. Now that I no longer perform, it's when I'm in a room and I'm watching my dancers do dance, choreography that we have made. Because it's choreographed by Seán Curran, but always now in collaboration with the dancers. Yeah.
Yes. I want to ask you a question that I ask people a lot when I'm interviewing them, which is, do you recall when you were a child what first sparked that imaginative flame in you that you look back now and go, oh, that's what got me going into becoming not just a dancer, but a choreographer years later? Is there something that comes to mind that really grabbed you?
2 things. So the legend in my family is that when my mom would take us grocery shopping, I would run up and down the aisles, leaping and twisting, and I imagine responding to the music
That was in the
that might have been playing. And her Aunt Sally, who paid my mother's way over to come from Ireland, said you should put him into Irish step dancing lessons. And in Gaelic, there's a word taspy, which means energy. And she said, it'll knock some of the taspy out of him. So
quite the opposite.
Quite the opposite. It gave me taspy. So a few Saturday mornings later, I was at a VFW hall in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Wonderful woman named Josephine Moran. Mrs. Moran was teaching me a jig. And for some reason, I was a very quick study, and I could sort of tell I was maybe good at this. And I got really into it. So the dancer in me was born then. And we performed quite a bit. And you'd get a Kennedy $50, or they'd buy you a Coke, and people would clap. So I knew I liked showing off. But I had a wonderful teacher in high school named B.J. Williams, who was the English teacher, but she also did all of the theater. And we were doing a musical. It was my 2nd or 3rd year. And she said, and Seán, I want you to choreograph the musical. I had never heard this word in all my years of Irish step dance training. It was a jig, a reel, or a hornpipe, a figure dance. I said, what did you say? What is choreograph? And she said, you'll make up the dances. The show was Bye Bye Birdie. I only knew from Irish step dancing. They were doing skip 2-3s, reel steps, jig steps. I didn't know any better, and she didn't care. But it was my first chance of organizing people in space, teaching them steps to do, and putting on a show. It led me to making a dance company in high school called Reflex. That was the name of my little dance company. It was my best friend Robert Reinhardt, my sister Trisha, a couple other kids, and I'd been bitten by the bug. I wanted to make dances, and of course then I put myself in them. But it's a great question because I have two very distinct memories.
And the two parts of you, both the performer and the creator-director, and your own performing path. From there, at what point were you a part of Stomp before you were to Bill T?
Yeah, so, I came to New York thinking I wanted to be Joel Grey or Ben Vereen, song and dance band.
Right.
Bob Fosse was...
sing?
I sing, not quite like Ben Vereen or Joel Grey probably,
Okay.
but I sing, and I've been at many an audition where I had my sheet music and I sang a song. But, so I thought I'd be on Broadway, but I started out as an actor, but somebody said, you should audition for the dance program. And so I switched majors and went to NYU. It was before it was Tisch, it was early 80s. And I love the challenge of technique, ballet. I'd never had ballet, contemporary. And I knew I had a lot of catching up to do. So I became a contemporary dancer, and Bill T. Jones came our senior year, made a piece on the Second Avenue Dance Company, which still exists,
right.
and said, come and apprentice with my company. And I spent 10 years in Bill and Arnie's company. Arnie died right in the middle, 5 years into it. But then I knew Bill wasn't so interested in me anymore as a performer. I was maybe more useful as an assistant or like a dance captain. And the AIDS epidemic was raging, and everyone was dying around me. And a big part of my story is that I bottomed out in alcohol and drugs. I went right to rehab, got sober. I've stayed sober for 33 years, thank goodness. But the Stomp folks were looking for the American cast, and I got a call. This was back when you dialed 411, information, you got somebody's number. And I got a call, and somebody said, hi, is this the Seán Curran that was in the Bill T. Jones Arnie Zane Dance Company that does Irish step dancing? And I said, yes. And he said, we want you to come and audition for this show that's coming to New York. And I knew what Stomp was. I'd been at the Edinburgh Festival in Scotland, and they were there. So I went to that audition. It led to 3 weeks of very intense auditions. But I got in the show, original New York City cast. And I did it for 4 years. I would have done it for longer, but my own work was taking off. And Bill and Arnie gave me great gifts in terms of composition, choreography, but Stomp gave me great gifts in terms of what it felt like to be a musician. The person making the music, not the person dancing to the music. So yeah, I think Bill T. Jones Arnie Zane Dance Company and Stomp should go on my tombstone along with To Work Is To Pray. The gifts were many, and they really showed me a way to be in the world.
And your own work has had, you have the work that you do on your company, which is definitely contemporary and has a remarkable range, but also you do choreograph for theater, for musical, and for opera as well. You have a really extraordinary breadth of musical knowledge, I think, that makes for the ability to go across genres that not all choreographers have done. And I'm curious, was that a decision that you wanted to, or were you given opportunities like, I'm going to learn about this,
right,
and take me into it?
It was actually a very lucky break. Early in my career, I did a show at St. Mark's Church, Dance Space Project, our beloved dance space. And one of the dancers in the company at that time, I don't even remember who it was, had a friend who come to see her dance, and the friend bought a friend. And the friend was Constance Hoffman, brilliant costume designer, member of the faculty of the design department here. And Constance was working on an opera with a director named Mark Lamos, and they lost the choreographer. And he said, we need a new choreographer. And Constance, I'm glad I can give her credit right here and right now, said, I saw a show, the choreographer is very musical, it feels theatrical, maybe he'd be good. Mark Lamos reached out, interviewed me over the phone, and hired me on the spot.
Oh my goodness.
That was a production of L'Étoile by Chabrier, a French opera. We did it in a very musical theater style. It was at Glimmerglass Opera Company. I came to New York City Opera, and that was my way into the world of opera. Another lucky break was when Nixon in China, John Adams, brilliant opera, was being done in its 20th anniversary production. The director, James Robinson, who I've worked with quite a bit, reached out to Mark Morris, the original choreographer, and said, we are reimagining this, we're redoing it, do you want another crack at it? And Mark Morris said, no, I've been there and done that, but he suggested me. I'll be forever grateful for that. So the opera and the musical theater, I just finished choreographing a production of Natasha Pierre and the Great Comet of 1812 in Rochester. The opera and musical theater choreography has nourished that musical theater guy in me. In my own work, I don't tell stories or imitate scenes from life the way you would in an opera or musical comedy or a movie for that matter. So it gives me the chance to be a storyteller, which I think is part of my Irish DNA.
Yes.
I call it creative crop rotation. I bring the contemporary
term.
Dance ideas to the opera, and then the opera ideas come back to the contemporary dance.
And you often take dancers across
Yes.
with you with those worlds too, so they also experience those.
Yes.
Like I've seen your dancers out at the Santa Fe Opera and in other places, which is marvelous for them too, to have that experience.
Yeah, they're very fluent. I call them very fluent dancers because they can be in a contemporary dance I've made, or they can be in a new opera where I'm making up another brand of dance for them.
I'm really looking forward to seeing this weekend. I love this line that you wrote. In experiencing these performances with us, you join a community pushing against a tide of collective loneliness, embracing our chosen families. I really think of your company as the chosen family, and using art to make sense of a chaotic universe. I think you have used your whole life's work to be doing that. And is that what you are hoping the audience will get a sense of this weekend in experiencing this work?
I really do. I'm so grateful you picked up on that because, I'm very honest about it. A big part of my story is I've been sober for 33 years.
Yeah.
And part of that journey has been to prove myself as an artist, as a choreographer, as a person who's not a fuck up, if you will. And so I've been very ambitious. I've been very driven. And I haven't paid so much attention to a personal life where I have a partner, or I have children, or however that works in your world. So my work has been my primary relationship, and my dancers have been my chosen family. And I'm very happy when they call me Papa Seán. Sometimes I get Uncle Shawnee. But I like the idea of having a dance company because you want to give people a place to dance. And I feel that my dancers are very grateful for that. They come from their side hustles, whether it's yoga teacher or nanny, or some of them are dancing at the Met now. But they have a place to dance, to be themselves, to do what they were meant to do. And of course, when a race against time, these dancers' careers will end around 40, 45, 50. We dance longer than we used to. But I like the idea of this chosen family, and I like this idea of giving dancers a place to dance.
I always thought that was so bittersweet about dance. It's like our intelligence of what to do is in direct opposition to the body having the ability to do it anymore.
Yeah.
So when we're young, we can do remarkable things, but sometimes we don't have the wisdom of which to embody into the work. And it's the hardest form that way. Musicians can get older and older with the work, but dancers definitely have a unlimited time, unless you're going to accept that you're going to do a different kind of dancing, right? Yeah. Do you miss performing yourself?
Desperately. That show-off little kid in me is not being nourished. But
Could there be a different kind of dance that you could do and perform?
My friend and colleague at Just Dance, Jeremy Nelson, said you just have to learn a new way of dancing. And I feel that I can't. That there's an idea I have about myself, about how high you jump or how many turns you do, that I can't do anymore, and I'm choosing to move on. I dance 3 mornings a week in technique class with my students. But you know, at this rehearsal I keep mentioning one of my best friends, his name is Ted Marks. He graduated with me from NYU dance program in 1983, and he danced for many years with Ralph Lemon. He's gone on to be a physical therapist and a teacher. We were watching, and I thought, if we were young dancers and we were in this company, Ted, my friend, 63 years old, would dance the part of Jack, and I would dance the part of Ben. And I told him this, and he welled up with emotion, and he said, "You're going to make me cry." But I think, you know, you're onto something. You're a dancer. You're a dance maker too. When is your life in flow? For us, at a point in our life, it was when we were moving to beautiful, interesting music. Flow changes, you know. But when people say, "What do you do?" I want to say, "I'm a dancer." But of course now I say, "I'm a choreographer." But in my brain, in my head, in my heart, I'll always be a dancer.
And I'll always see you that way, absolutely.
Thank you.
Seán, thank you for this time to talk with you. It's been a joy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm
And
so grateful.
enjoy the concert. It's going to be so beautiful. I hope I'll see you there.
Thank you.